We'll start with Don on the right.
Coach, what are you looking for Saturday? What can the fans expect?
Yeah, we'll do a game. Probably have a drive or two that will be thud, but we'll be tackling and playing a full game. So, we're excited about that. I think it's a great opportunity because of our numbers to let guys get out there and play in front of a good crowd. It sounds like we're going to have a good crowd, and for 51 of our new guys. Now, I guess not all of them will be participating because a couple of guys will be dinged up, but that'll be their first time playing, in front of a crowd. So, great opportunity for all of them to grade out and finish off their spring the right way. And that's, we've been grading every practice and really evaluating every practice. So I know that they want to finish this last week strong.
How much contact?
Oh, we'll be tackling the whole time. Again, maybe a drive or two of thud, but we'll be tackling the rest of the time.
Except the quarterback?
Except the quarterbacks, but we'll see as the scrimmage goes on how it goes.
Dave on the left.
Ryan, how is Legend Bay doing?
He, is getting back. I don't know if he'll be able to, be ready by Saturday, but it's been a hamstring injury that's been bothering him for a couple weeks now, and he's been rehabbing. He's not quite there, ready to go yet, but our guys are working hard to get him back on the field.
Real quick, if healthy, I know he's transitioned from being a high school quarterback to being a running back at Ohio State. Obviously, big transition. But if healthy, what can he add for you guys this year?
Well, we'll see. But he certainly has talent. His talent is his explosiveness, his quickness. He has vision. So, that's exciting. You can see that on his film, but then once he's out here, you can see that as well. As always, the areas that we focus on is discipline and skill. The skill to play the position and the discipline. And what we consider discipline is everything that you didn't just have that you weren't born with. And so that's effort, focus, work ethic, like all of those things, and then the skill. And so I think that is your question. It's like, okay, if he's a running back, if he's a wide receiver making the transition from playing quarterback in high school, how many reps does that take? It does take some time, and so he did miss some time here this spring. So he'll be a little bit behind that way, but the talent is definitely there.
Doug in the center.
Ryan, the full shape of the quarterback room with Julian back, but then also Tavian and bringing in Justin and Luke being a new guy. What did you think of the room you guys were able to build, and how has that looked during spring, and what are you hoping to see from those guys on Saturday? It's
been solid. Every day you come off the field and you get challenged, and you have a certain opinion every day. Is a new day. That's kind of how you have to look at it when you're a quarterback, because if you think what happened the last practice is going to affect the next, it's not. Defense is going to throw new stuff at you. We have some things that we're installing, different situations. And that is one thing as we get into the last week of spring, more situational stuff. But I feel like the room is strong. I feel like we have an opportunity to build some depth behind Julian and then build a future with the guys that are in the room. And so, we're working to build these guys up every day, but they have to realize and understand that, certainly Julian's a starter, but, they're one play away from playing in these games. And, we all know, the history of, guys getting injured and having guys step up. So depth is important at every position, but we know how important it is at quarterback. So there has been a lot of growth in that room, but we all know what the expectation is. The expectation is to step in and play at championship level.
How important was it to bring in a guy like Justin this offseason?
Well, I thought it was important to bring in some veteran presence in the room, which was a good balance. Justin, I've been very impressed with his approach, very professional. He puts a lot of work in off the field, and then when he stands in front of the guys in the huddle, he's prepared. He's made some improvements, and he knows what it means to get prepared and to work. So those have all been positive things. And so, he's learning a new offense and how we do things here. But there has been certainly some bright spots.
Steven on the right.
You mentioned before how when Arthur first got here, you kind of took a step back and allowed him to kind of operate before you stepped in to things here. And this is like the first time you've had a guy running this offense that relatively just didn't speak the same language that you did completely. How have you seen that maybe impact where you guys want the direction of this offense to go? And then also just, would it be fair to call him the head coach of the offense?
Yeah, I mean that's what we're looking for. But there was a lot of terminology on both sides that we've sort of put together on this, whether it's formations or concepts. But he brings a different perspective to the table, and I think being reflective in the off season, once you've been here going on 10 years, you certainly know what you know, and that's good. But there's a lot of different ways to do things, and I felt like it was the right time to allow Arthur to come in and sort of, give his perspective on the offense about where, he can see it going, and then, we're going to come together after the spring and start to, put more and more things that he's done, more and more things that we've done together, and really try to shape this out based on our personnel. But his opinion is very important to me, because he is coming from a different perspective. Now, that being said, the West Coast route tree and things and the way he does things is familiar to me, just because, when I was in the NFL and worked with some of the different coaches I've been with growing up, a lot of the things that he's done, we see it the same way. We talk the same language when it comes from that tree. But over the years, the West Coast offense has everyone's just sort of gone off into different directions with it, and so he has his sort of variation of it, and so do we. But I think everybody's input in the room will be important. And then ultimately, we're going to do what the players can do best, and that's the number one thing that we got to focus on. We're going to finish up this week, and then put the cut-ups together, and then figure out how we're going to attack the summer.
You have an NFL head coach on both sides of the ball running things. Where does that lead you in terms of how you're spending your time? Whether it's when guys are meeting, when you guys are on the practice field, does this feel like the most detached you've been from just like one singular group of people, just simply because of what you have in place?
Well, in the spring, just to give you an idea kind of how it goes, we get off the field here. We have a couple things that go on, whether it's media. And what we have is typically we have recruits, and we have a schedule on how we do this. I do a lot of the meeting with the recruits in my office, and so they get going with the film. I typically, and this is sort of the way it's been the last couple of years during the spring, I'll watch all of the film on my own, and then sometimes when I have more time, I'll jump in there and watch it with the offense. But I typically will watch it on my own, and then either put together a cut up or give feedback based on what I see the next day at our staff meeting, and then we build the practice for the next day. So that's really sort of how it goes. A lot of the stuff that I do in this time of year in the spring is typically in the staff meetings when we have everybody in there. Once we get into preseason camp and during the season, then it allows me more time because the recruiting isn't as hectic with all the people in the building and everything that comes with it. So this week will be a great week for us. We have our high school clinic, as many of you know, on Thursday, which is great. And so we're expecting great numbers there. We have Matt and Arthur speaking Thursday night. John Gruden will be here. He'll be speaking Thursday night, and then Friday. And then, folks can stay for the spring game, which is huge. And then the spring game, as you know, is a great day for recruiting. A lot of people coming into town for that, former players, current players' families, and all the fans being a part of that. But then again, recruiting is a big part of that day. And then that night we have our big NIL fundraiser, Saddle Up. So it's a busy week, and that's kind of how things go this time of year. You got a lot going on, but those guys are obviously focusing on the X's and the O's this time of year. Once spring kind of slows down a little bit, we get through June, it allows me more time and more free time to get around these guys a little bit more in terms of the X's and O's, but involved in all the special teams meetings, try to jump in the position meetings the best I can.
Joe on the left.
I know the program's always been on the forefront of changes throughout college football. Notice the back of the helmets where the guys' last names are on the back now. How did that come to be?
Well, because we had 51 new players, I don't know if you remember, but when we used to go to preseason camp, when everybody used to show up in the summers, I used to remember when I first showed up to camp, I had a box fan. I met my roommate, and I stayed in the dorm, and I got a piece of white tape on the front of my helmet that said "Day," and everybody said, "Day, get over here." Well, now we wear the Guardian caps, so you can't really put anybody's name on the front. So Kevin Reese was creative in how he did that, so that's what we're doing this spring.
Berm on the right.
Ryan, we haven't talked to Julian since the first day of acclimation period, but what have you seen out of him in these last 4 weeks that give you confidence that the growth that you wanted off the field is happening, but also his voice on it? Is he getting more demonstrative? Or are you feeling more secure that he's leading the way that you and Arthur need him to?
I would say, like, as a quarterback coach, always want more, always. So that being said, you do feel a lot of progress being made in the huddle in particular, the way that he can get us in and out of plays, the way he operates the offense, the way he communicates in the huddle at the line of scrimmage is excellent. But we always want more. So we're always going to keep driving at it because there's so many more things that we got to get better at. But there's definitely improvement each practice.
Is there a chance that the iteration of the offense that you have building towards 26, it will actually suit him better as a quarterback?
Good question. I think that's something we have to figure out as we get to the preseason, and that trying to find what's best starts with him, honestly. It starts with the quarterback, then it goes to everybody else on offense, your skill players, your offensive line. But that's what we're chasing.
Dylan on the right.
Ryan, as you wrap up spring practice, I guess, what are you most pleasantly surprised with? Maybe something you had questions about or weren't sure about that maybe you don't have an answer to now, but you feel better about it now than when you went into the spring?
Like I always say, I never feel good about anything, coming out of these practices. You never know what to think. I talk to so many coaches across the country, how's your team look? Oh, they look really good, and I'm like, well, I don't feel that way. Because I know what we have to do. I know the schedule about to play, and I know what the expectations are. So, we got to wake up early, we got to get to bed early, and we got to come in here and just attack every single day. I think, I wouldn't say it's one position group over another, but I think that the guys have played with a certain level of effort and intensity in practice every day. People who go to multiple practices have commented to me on how hard our guys are practicing, so I think that's good. But I know we need to go, so I'm not really content or satisfied with anything right now. We got to keep getting better.
Joey up front.
Ryan, last year, it seemed like nationwide there was kind of, maybe still this year, but spring games have been canceled or scaled back. And I think at this point last year, we looked at having a showcase. But to have a game, what do you see as the value of still having the traditional spring game? And is it just as valuable, if not more, with 51 new guys? Just how have you kind of weighed that?
Well, I think when we entered last year, coming off of the late season, finish, we finished on the 20th, and then spring ball was right around the corner. But what you realize is these guys coming out of high school really need to play. They haven't played at this level, and it's a big jump for all of them. So they need it. There are guys, however, that have played, 500 or 1,000 more snaps, 1,000 or more snaps. And so those guys really don't need that as much. But there's a lot of guys on the team that do. And so now that there's only one portal and you pretty much know what your team is at this point, it allows you enough players to get out there and actually, scrimmage. And we need to do that. So that's what we're going to do. But we'll also be smart and make sure we're not putting guys who have played a whole bunch of football out there, and risk any type of injury. But some of these guys do need to play, and then it gives us some feedback going into the preseason on how guys are. We can expect them to perform when they go into games.
Cameron on the right.
Ryan, you just mentioned not having the spring portal. I'm curious. This time last year, you were probably hoping to keep guys and figure out other programs as well.
Yeah.
How does that change? What you guys do in the next month? Where you go? Are you able to scheme better? How does that change things for you guys?
Well, there's pluses and minuses to everything, and having the spring portal not available, the good news on that is that you know what your team is. That is the good part of it. We all know what the negatives are of how crazy December and January is, and what comes with all of that. And not to mention, I don't want to say, but once you have your team, you pretty much have your team, and that's in January, and then you have that all the way through the next year. So there are injuries, there's certain things that could happen, but you can't replace them. You can't get anybody off of waivers, obviously, and you don't have anybody in the spring portal. So there's there's a lot of pluses and minuses. But again, to your point, the pluses are we know what we have, and we have a full roster. So spring can be a little bit more productive that way. Now we're not going to be sitting around, dealing with another round of, conversations and negotiations. So again, another major positive to this. For us, we're going to do exit interviews here next week, give guys feedback. They're going to get away for a couple of weeks, come back for the summer session, which will be huge for us. Guys will go on the road recruiting in high school recruiting. They changed the rule on that, so more guys will be able to go on the road, which is a good thing, I believe. And then we'll finish, June up with our high school camps, and then our official visits on campus.
Bill Landis in the center.
Ryan, Matt Guerreri was talking about maybe the part where you're going to miss Caleb Downs the most is in the communication aspect of that safety position. Who have you seen stepping up, trying to pick up some of that slack, and just what have you thought overall of that position group so far?
It's something that we're trying to get everybody to communicate more, just across the board, loud, let your voice be heard, and it's all of those guys back there. We play with those three safeties or the nickel coming down. All three of those guys have to communicate. The corners have to communicate, so the linebackers have to communicate. So really just talking to them about being loud, and volume exudes confidence. So it's everybody, but certainly Caleb is, someone that was excellent at it. He did a good job in the meeting rooms connecting with guys and making sure everybody's on the same page there. That was almost just as important as when he's on the field making the calls, and so that communication is an area, like, again, we put up on the board some of our goals for the spring, and one of them was communication and creating a personality as a team. I think we're getting better at communicating, but again, we still got a long way to go.
Austin on the right.
Ryan, I know you guys won't make any definitive decisions on that offensive line in spring, and maybe you can't right now given the injuries anyway, but Ian, I know, is going to be like maybe the tipping point to that conversation. How has he graded out, made the most of these last couple of weeks with Austin out, and how much does that carry then over into August?
Well, to have Ian and Carter both have an opportunity here with Phil and Austin down, and that's you never want to see anybody get hurt, but the silver lining in that is these guys have to step up now and play against the ones every day in practice, and so that's giving us some really good information on what we can expect next year, but it's also challenging them to step up. So that part's been good. Ian has done some really good things, so that's been great, and I think that he understands now going into this year. He's got some time under his belt here as a Buckeye, and so we need him. We need him to step up in a big way for us. And I don't know exactly what the grades look like, but overall he certainly has gotten better, and he's going to have an opportunity to play himself into a starter role here. Now, whether he does and takes the next final step or two, we'll have to see. But he's certainly going to be in the conversation.
Dan in the center.
Ryan, Cortez was talking a couple weeks ago about how yards after catch is a big emphasis for you guys. How have you seen that grow this spring, and who are some of the guys that you think can maybe bring more of that to the offense?
Well, first of it, it's a location to throw, then it's the ability to transition into a running back, which is really what it is, and then how cleanly can we catch the ball and put the ball away and not try to catch it with our body, play extended, play big, and then it's just practice habits. And so it's something we got to continue to get better at. There's been some really good catch and runs, but we got to find those hidden yards in there. And on 3rd and 6, we got to catch it and make 3 yards. And on first down, we got to catch that ball at 4 and make 6. And whether it's a running back or a wide receiver, once that ball's in your hand, a tight end, again, find those hidden yards. And it's something that's definitely an emphasis point. I think we've been solid at it, but I certainly think we can get better.
There's a lot of guys, Kyle, Devin, Brock, Chris, who are pushing for playing time there. Do you feel like you guys are going to rotate more at receiver mid than you have in years past this year?
My guess would be, if I'm predicting it, I would say probably yes. I think a lot of guys are playing themselves into roles, again, that I feel like they can play for us. Still yet to be seen. We're not going to make any decisions coming out of the spring, but I think if the competition continues and the guys continue to improve, you're going to see guys get opportunities. And like you said, there's been times, it's been a little while, where we played 6 or 7 receivers. That was more like 3 or 4 probably most recently, but we've done it before. If guys deserve to play, they're going to play, and we do have a good room with some good depth there, so that'll keep those guys fresh, and it's a long season.
We got 3 more guys added on the right.
You guys talked a lot last year about Jeremiah Smith being a vocal leader. How have you seen that grow now throughout the past year, and is there still a lot of room for growth there?
Well, Jeremiah, you know, as you guys know, is sort of a man of few words, but he's found his voice more and more. And I've noticed the last few practices, even when the 2s and the 3s are in there, he's near the huddle, he's listening to the call, he's encouraging them, he's coaching them, you know, he's there. And, you know, leaders have to be felt, leaders have to be heard, and that's just how it goes. And he's making a conscious effort to do that. And I think the guys see that. What he's always done since he stepped in this building is he's practiced really hard and set an example of discipline and how you practice. And when your best players are your hardest workers, it gives you a chance to build a culture. He's done that for sure, like with a giant check mark from the day he walked in until just his practice today. I think where he's really working on is, you know, being felt and heard in terms of, you know, encouraging guys, pushing guys, being that leader, and having an impact and having a connection with the guys. And he's definitely made an effort. You can see it. And so we're going to need that. You know, the leadership, as we all know, is critical. People talk about it all the time. But where this leadership takes us is going to ultimately be what writes the story. And it's typically the guys in the team room that are right down here. You know, they've been in the program for 3 or 4 years, or they're coming in as veteran guys from other programs that have to, you know, earn the trust of the guys in this room and then lead the way. But, you know, leadership doesn't just necessarily have to be the older guys. There's leadership and ways to do that with some of the younger guys as well. We did vote on our leadership committee, and that group's, you know, come together now, and they're going to lead us into the summer and be the guys that we count on to be the voice of the team.
Last 2 Bill Rodino's.
What do you most want to see Saturday? Some concern you might have that could be eased by what you see? Are there 1 or 2 things that you are particularly going to spotlight?
No, just another you know, point of evaluation on all the guys is really what it would be. You know, listen, the running backs, you know, probably won't have, you know, 3 of those guys out there. Maybe probably not 4 of them. You know, Turbo is probably not going to make it. Legend's probably not going to make it. So we're down running backs. So, you know, we'll have to throw the ball some, which is good for the quarterbacks to get the ball out of their hand and see how they handle the environment. And then, you know, get a chance to see the ball with you know, the wide receivers and see what those guys do. And then pass rush and pass protection. And so it'll probably be some of that. Not that we won't run the ball, but with those guys down, you probably won't get as much of that. So, but just to see how guys respond in that environment will be the biggest thing.
And the defensive line, obviously a lot of new pieces. Which of the new guys has really made an impression?
I think all 3, James, Quay, and John, have all done a good job. I'm not forgetting any of the new guys, right? I mean, those are the 3 transfers that came in, the older guys, and they've done a really good job. Christian at linebacker as well has done I mean, you feel them every day in practice, and I think that's when we talked about new guys. They're new, but these guys have played football, and you can see it when they're on the field.
Ted, last one.
Yeah, Ryan, Coach Locklin the other day had no qualms about gushing about what Legend Bay brings to the table, the fact he's ready to go, et cetera, and stuff. In this age, when a guy like that comes along, a special talent, does it behoove you to push him along? Obviously, he's been missing, you know, the last couple of weeks, but I mean, how do you approach that now in terms of a possible special talent and getting the most out of him basically all 3 years, for want of another term?
Yeah. You know,
is he special to you when you've watched his video, et cetera?
He certainly has talent, and, you know, but we've had a lot of talented guys that have come through here, and everybody who's come through has earned it. Typically, they earn it on special teams first, and then they go from there. But there's no question, you know, why we recruited him. We could see the playmaking ability, but, you know, we also know how to develop them, and it's going to take, you know, being with Mick, getting stronger, and then learning the position of running back / wide receiver. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that's frustrating, is he's not out there right now. So we don't quite have a good handle on, is he a running back, is he a receiver, what can he do the best? So we still got to see what that looks like. But like we said, there's no questioning the talent. And so this summer will be big for him.
And one other quickie. You probably saw where Jeremiah said on some podcast or some interview that there was an offer out there, maybe upwards of $10 million. Is that crazy to you, or how would you explain that to somebody about what's going on really?
Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah, I'm not sure what crazy is anymore.
Yeah.
You know, people say crazy, people say Wild West, people say a lot of things, and I agree with what everybody's saying. It's a challenging time, but we're trying to figure it all out. And you know, this is unprecedented times for sure. There's no question about it. And so we're not going to change our philosophy. We want to recruit great high school players, develop them, and then retain them. And a big part of that is the sphere of influence. And you know, in particular with Jeremiah, when you talk about his family, when you talk about his agent, when you talk about he keeps it really tight, there's great trust there. And to me, that gives you a chance to sort through some of these difficult times. So you know, that's it. And so we have to make sure that we stay focused on that when we bring people into the building, that we still focus on that part of it. The player and the student athlete is very, very important, but who surrounds them is just as important nowadays. Yeah, thanks.